note of all this talk of fraud, miscounting and so on, there has been a legal challenge in Georgia, in that state he was in. It was a claim from the Trump campaign of 53 votes that came in late that were mixed in with other votes when they should not have been. Well, the judge in the Superior Court found in Georgia there was no evidence of that and it was dismissed. So far the legal claims they're putting up, except for the one in Pennsylvania about closer observation, that was noted there, that's true. They did want closer observation to be within 6 feet rather than 12 feet. That is something being contested, appealed if you like. So that particular element true, but the rest of these cases, well, there's evidence of it. It should be brought forward. I just want to bring you to attention as well. We heard earlier from Vernon Jones. He's a Democrat, in fact, in Georgia, but a Trump supporter. Here's part of what he said. The fight is just getting started. This is to do with the election. We are starting now to see the white in their eyes. We are getting ready now to start shooting. Maybe he's claiming that's rhetoric of some sort. It's pretty scary stuff. There's a lot happening right now. We've heard from Donald Trump. We've heard from Donald Trump Jr. We've heard from Joe Biden, and his latest tweet, in fact, was talking about essentially trying to remain calm. I've just lost it on my screen here, but each of his utterances so far has been more along the lines of let's see each vote counted. In Georgia as well, in the state we just heard from, we might bring up, if we can, the latest in the vote. It's very, very tight. It is right towards the end. The margin there has come into 3,600 votes. 3,600, in fact, and 35, let's be precise, it might come down to that. There are roughly 20,000 votes left, give or take. There are some anomalies about that could take some days to come in, but if Joe Biden hits the lead there, barring perhaps some military votes that come in later that help Donald Trump, it's going to be hard for Donald Trump to get back ahead, but it is in the sort of recount territory, 1,000 or two, that could be a possibility. We've got the rest of the seats as well, of course. We'll talk through them. Pennsylvania still trending towards Joe Biden. Arizona trending towards Donald Trump as well. But the interesting note that's been there, we'll look at Pennsylvania first of all, because we haven't had an update of these for a little while for you on our screen. We've given all that's happening. 65,000. Again, you've got 10 or 11% of the vote to come. So that's the concern for what's happening for Donald Trump. It's how quickly that's going away for him at the moment. And if you do the math right now, if it continues roughly on where it has been going, well, that's the issue. That would bring that into line and could even in the end give Joe Biden, believe it or not, a comfortable enough margin that you wouldn't be talking about recounts. And just on Arizona, I'll do that quickly before I bring in who I've got waiting by here, but this is tightening. This is within 64,000. What's interesting about this is Fox News has called it. Now, from the Fox decision desk, the director, Anand Mishkin, has defended calling this. He says, we remain confident Biden will finish ahead of Trump in Arizona. They are taking into account Donald Trump getting 55% of the outstanding vote. Even then, it won't be enough. So they are saying he'll continue to close, but it won't get there. There have been different batches. A couple even had Joe Biden gaining. One of them came in of 12,000 votes that was 61%. Towards Donald Trump, that could get him close. One even an 82% for Donald Trump. Another that was trending towards Joe Biden. So they've done the math. They still believe they're right. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. It's been an extraordinary couple of hours, to be frank. Still staying with me very patiently, Kim Hoggard, non-resident fellow at the US Studies Centre. So much to unpack. I think one of the most important things is when we're getting this broad doubt cast on what's happened with these votes from the whole campaign, from Donald Trump, whittled away miraculously, he said. Well, he told his supporters, don't vote by mail. Democrats did. There was a red wave on election day, obviously, and a blue wave after. We were always told this would happen.
Yes, you're absolutely right to point that out, Tom. And we're in the middle of a pandemic. The president hasn't mentioned it once. You know, this is the reason that states went to using mail-in ballots. If you remember back in the Democrat primaries earlier in the year, when we learned of the pandemic, a lot of the primaries were delayed. So their votes took place even later because of it. Mail-in balloting became popular as a means to get to this election and get America's votes registered during a time when 250,000 Americans have died. They've had a record number of infections daily infections of 100,000, and over 9 million infections. So it's spreading. It's spreading across the country. This is the reason there is mail-in balloting. There always has been mail-in balloting. And what we've just seen over this last hour is an incredible amount of disinformation that requires an incredible amount of fact-checking, and starting with the mail-in balloting. And as you said, it was expected that because the president discouraged his supporters from using mail-in ballots, encouraged them to show up on election day to cast their ballot. That's what they did. They were the ones in many states counted first, because again, states have different rules. Each state has its own electoral board, and they determine when they are going to start counting mail-in ballots and absentee ballots and overseas ballots and military ballots who are stationed overseas. These are all legitimate ballots, and in every election, ballots that are postmarked by November 3rd or before can come in after November 3rd and be valid ballots. People have cast their vote. It's inappropriate and wrong for Donald Trump Jr. to say that ballots are still being cast. No, all ballots have been cast by Election Day, but ballots are still being tabulated and tallied and counted after Election Day. And each state has their own rules about how long they will allow mail-in ballots to arrive. Some are, on the day, some are 3 days later, some are 9 days later. And this has always been the case in America, that the tabulation continues, and it can continue for weeks. And in fact, states don't have to report their tabulations until just before December 8th, when the Electoral College meets and actually formalizes this vote. So it's just completely inaccurate. And also, I found it interesting that the president complained about observers being kept far away from watching the tabulation process. Again, I'll just repeat it. Every state has their own rules. They make agreements with campaigns about that process, and they're agreed to, and there are observers there. But then on the other hand, he says there are all these mistakes being made. But how does he know that if he doesn't have the observers there?
The point being made about overall, if you look at the state, for example, of Georgia, yes, the case was in Pennsylvania, Democrat governor, but Georgia, Republican. They were trying to sort of drill down even to say, well, if these Democratic counties are to blame. Interesting to get your thoughts there. On reaction, I guess, Pete, I think you're with me. I'm sorry you've been on your feet for a long time. We've had a lot going on. I know the feeling. It's been another long day for you. But reaction to some of the commentary around, I'm not sure if words filtered through to anyone there, around Vernon Jones talking about, and let's just hope this is rhetoric gone far, but, we can see the white in their eyes. We're getting ready now to start shooting. Around talking about this as a fraud, a rigged election. Is that resonating? Are there any people around you starting to wonder about how this all plays out from here? How much unrest could be ahead?
I don't know about that. There's certainly not any unrest around here. It's all fairly jovial, but I am noticing a few more Republicans who are speaking on Twitter now right after Donald Trump spoke. Among them, one of the most high-profile Republicans, Mitt Romney. He says, counting every vote is at the heart of democracy. That process is often long, and for those running, frustrating. The votes will be counted. If there are irregularities alleged, they will be investigated and ultimately resolved in the courts. Have faith in democracy, in our Constitution and in the American people. And also the Republican governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan, has just recently said there is no defence for the president's comments tonight undermining our democratic process. America is counting the votes and we must respect the results as we always have before. No election or person is more important than our democracy. So I was wondering about that tonight. If more and more of the senior Republicans, where are they going to go? What do they think about this? And there's two pretty senior ones right there.